Hi everybody, it's Geordie from Geordie's Cards. Thank you so much for joining me today. So it's been a little while since I entered a Heffy Doodle challenge, and I decided to enter this month's one, which is called Fall Flair. So it's all about fall themed cards. And the products I'm using today are this Heffy Doodle Nuts About You stamp set, the Heffy Doodle Dear to Me stamp set. I just love these two. I've got the Tree-mendous Peekaboo tree dies, the stitched Slimline trio dies, and I'm also going to be using the Falling Leaves stencil. So here I have some lawn fawn, even Woodgrain cardstock in the dark brown colour, and I'm using that Tree-mendous die, but I'm going to do a little bit of partial die cutting. So I had this kind of strip left over, and what I'm doing is I'm placing that at the top, the die at the top part of that strip of cardstock, and I'm just going to partially cut the top part of the die. Now excuse this gets a bit wobbly because I keep knocking the camera with my arm, but there you can see. So just cut the top part, and now I'm going to move that die right down to the bottom part of that cardstock and try and line it up so that it kind of matches the lines that I've already die cut at the top. And I'm just going to go ahead and partially die cut the bottom of the tree. So I'm trying to create a taller tree for my card because I'm creating a slimline card today. So once I have done that, I'm just going to take my craft knife, and I have just done some pencil lines, which I'm kind of following fairly roughly freehand with my craft knife. And I'm going to create a nice tall tree that is slightly longer than my slimline card because I'm going to be trimming it, just trimming the very top off it. I just wanted to try and line it up as best as I could, and it measures roughly about 8 inches, I think. So now in the Tree-mendous tree dies, there are these kind of peekaboo flaps, which I am die cutting into the trunk of my tree, and I'm going to do 3 of them. There are 2 different shapes. I'm going to do 2 of the same at the top and the bottom, and then kind of one in the middle that's a little bit different. So one's more oval shaped and the 2 are more square shaped. And I just wanted to add these little pieces in to create a bit more of an interactive element to my little card today. So you can see I'm just attaching that last one up there at the top, and I'll run that through my die cut machine. And then that is my tree trunk all ready to go. And I think it turned out quite nicely, and it was quite easy to create a longer tree. So now I have a panel of Bristol Smooth cardstock, which is about 8.5 inches long. And I am using some Tumbled Glass Distress Oxide ink. I want to go fairly light with this because I am going to be doing some more stenciling over the top. So I'm just giving it a very light coat with the Tumbled Glass to begin with. And you can't really see it on camera, but you can see it in real life. And I'm not going all the way to the bottom because the bottom is going to be covered up by a grassy piece that I'm going to create shortly. So I'm just creating the top part, which is going to be my sky. And once I've layered on Tumbled Glass all over, I'm just going in with my cloudy stencil die, but my cloudy stencil to create some little clouds. Now this is just a subtle way of doing it because obviously I already have that base color of Tumbled Glass, and then I'm just going over slightly darker to create the cloud effect on my card panel. To be honest, you're not going to see a great deal of this, and most of my background is going to be covered up, but I just wanted to add a little bit of something in the back. Now I have this gorgeous Falling Leaves stencil, which is by Heffy Doodle. And I'm bringing out some Distress Oxide inks, and this is Mustard Seed to begin with. Dabbing that on, then I've got Spiced Marmalade, which is this lovely orangey colour. And I'm just kind of dabbing it on in places, and once I've kind of got it down, I'm going to go back in and kind of blend it over again. And finally I have this Barn Door, which is the red colour that I own. It's the only red I have. Desperate to get my hands on the lumberjack red, which I think is really, really cool. But this is the one I've got in my stash at the moment. So I'm just kind of making sure that I've gone over all of the leaves that are there in my panel, and I'm going to go back through and blend over again with the colours so that I get some nice transitions between the colours on the leaves. Once I'm happy with that, I'll lift my stencil off, and there you can see it creates this gorgeous little sky. So here I have another scrap of Bristol Smooth Cardstock, and I'm using some Rustic Wilderness Distress Oxide ink for this bit. Going in fairly heavy-handed, just creating a layer of colour all over. And once I've done that, I'm going to be doing some stenciling on this as well. Now obviously because this colour is a lot darker than the tumbled glass, the colours aren't going to show up quite as well, but I'm just using those same colours of Distress Oxide ink and that Falling Leaf stencil again, and I'm just going in and creating some kind of leaves lying in my grass. So as I say, the colours won't show up quite as well, but because this is Distress Oxide ink, the oxides tend to sit on top of each other. So if you don't kind of blend in really well, you can kind of get them sitting on top, which is the effect I'm going for here. So I'm going quite heavy-handed with these colours, just kind of almost dabbing it through the stencil, going back and forth a few times to make sure I get a nice coverage, and you will get that colour showing up. So there you can see it it's a bit more muted than it is on the blue sky, but I think it works quite well. So I have gone ahead and cut both of these panels with one of those stitched slimline rectangles from my die set, and I've also cut that grassy piece with a grassy border die, and now I'm just attaching it down with some liquid glue. Now I'm going to figure out where everything else is going to go. So here is my tree trunk, and you can see it's slightly longer than my panel, and I've also cut two of the branches which I've attached behind my tree. I've coloured all my images and cut them out, and now I'm placing them down where I want them to go. So I'm going to start with this little deer who's going to be poking out from behind the tree. I want to stick him down flat. Everything else is going to be up on foam tape. So I just wanted to make sure he was in the right position first. I'm just lifting up his little ear because his ear is going to be hanging over the edge of my tree. So just wanted to make sure that was ready. I have gone ahead and stuck my little critters into the little peekaboo flaps of the tree. All I did was coloured them as normal and then just kind of coloured around them with some brown marker so it looks like they're inside the tree. I've done a little squirrel, a little bird and a little mouse in each of those little flaps. And before I do glue everything down, I'm going to go ahead and put my sentiment on. And in this stamp set, this is the Dear to Me stamp set, there is this sentiment that's stacked and it fits perfectly in the tree trunk and it says, "Well, hello dear." And I just thought that was kind of fitting for my little peekaboo card. So I'm using some Versamark ink. I've gone ahead and prepped my cardstock with some anti-static powder tool, and I'm going to stamp that down, get a nice crisp clear impression, and then I'm going to bring out my white heat embossing powder and I'm going to sprinkle that on top. Now I always have a nightmare with heat embossing powders. I try and do everything right, but you always get a little bit left over. So I'm taking my brush, I'm very carefully brushing off any little excess pieces. I do go back and add some more powder where I've kind of brushed it off, and I'm sorry this is off camera a little bit, but that's all I'm doing. I'm just going back and forth and making sure that I've kind of cleaned everything up as best as possible and made sure I've got rid of all that excess embossing powder. Once I am happy with everything, which as I say takes a while, I go back and forth a bit, I will go ahead and heat it up with my heat tool. So I do like to take my time with this because I have had many disasters with heat embossing powder, and I've gotten to this point with my card making, I really don't want to mess up my tree now. So that is all embossed, it's nice, it's crisp, it's clear, and I'm just using a paper towel to wipe over that so that I get rid of any of that excess powder that was left on there. Once again, I'm placing my tree down, just making sure it's in the right spot, and I'm going to go ahead and glue this down flat. So my tree is going to go down flat, and then all of my other little critters are going to be popped up on some foam tape. So I'm making sure I've got plenty of glue on there, and I'm going to pop it down. Now all I'm lining up is that kind of branch that goes into the top left corner there. So I'm just making sure that that lines up with the edge of my card. Everything else is going to hang over a little bit, apart from the bottom, which I've made sure just kind of fits in nicely. I'm going to glue down that little deer's ear, and it's perfectly fitting in there behind that sentiment. And then I'm going to trim off any excess pieces that are overhanging. my deer is overhanging slightly. I'm not going to trim him off. So just my tree. I don't want to cut my deer's nose off. I'm just trimming off all the branches of my tree. And once I'm happy with that, I can go ahead and start assembling everything else. So as I say, I wanted to stick everything else up with some foam tape to make them look kind of like a little bit more further forward, add a little bit more dimension. So I'm going to start with this little deer on the ground, and then my little squirrel who's jumping out of my tree. I've got another little bird who's sitting on the branch here, and one more squirrel sitting on that branch at the top. So I'm just taking some foam squares and adding those on. And I have a nightmare with foam squares as well. I always struggle to get the backing off, and I always get them, you know, in the wrong places. I have to peel them up and stick them back down again. But, you know, it's just my process. I am a little bit of a messy crafter, I think, a little bit clumsy. So that's okay. It worked out in the end, and I think it looks really, really cute. So if you want to play along with this Heffy Doodle challenge, Heffy Doodle have a Facebook page for their kind of fans, if you like. It's the Heffy Doodlers Facebook page. Go and check it out. They have a challenge every month, and you have a chance of winning a gift voucher to the store. And at the moment, I don't know if you've seen, but Heffy Doodle have this mega deal going on at the moment, where they've got some really amazing bundles for some really good prices. So go and check that out if you like Heffy Doodle. They've got some really good deals going on at the moment. I have put in a request for my Christmas present, so I think my husband's gone ahead and ordered something for me for Christmas from one of those deals, so I'm quite happy. Once all of that is stuck down, I have the Slimline card base. It measures 8.5 by 3.5. I've cut it from this kind of gold cardstock. I've stamped a little sentiment in the center along with one of those little deer. And now I'm just going to glue my card panel down onto my card base. And this is always the trickiest bit, is trying to get it all lined up so it's nice and even and there's a nice border all the way around. I used the kind of middle of the Slimline Trio die, so I've got that nice border that goes all the way around. And that is it, card complete. And I had a lot of fun making this one. I've been doing a lot of Christmas cards, so it's nice to do something a little bit different. And this was lots of fun, and I really enjoyed putting it together. I did manage to get glue everywhere, as always, but there we go. It's all complete, and I think it turned out really, really cute, and it's got that fun little interactive element of the lifter flaps. So I hope you enjoyed this one today. If you did, please do give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe to my channel. I would love to see you back again. Ring that notification bell so you get notified when I post videos. I tend to post a couple a week. And yeah, leave a comment. Let me know what you thought. Thanks so much, everyone. Take care.